Hey everyone, we're in another AI conversation, and I'm joined today by Jian Robedillo, who I actually spoke to before. He's doing an interesting research about products. Hi Jian, welcome to the conversation.
Hey Doc, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
before we get to kind of the weeds, maybe for for the people who have not met you or don't know you, give a quick background. So, what have you been doing? And mamaya we can talk about your research also.
yeah. Okay, so hey everyone who's listening. I'm Gian. Currently, I'm based in Germany. Pursuing my MBA here. In SME development, so a lot of startups, and I've been here for about a year and a half now. Originally from the Philippines, so I've been part of like various tech companies in the Philippines. Particularly in tech logistics. So I was part of the pioneering team of Lalamove. And
Wow.
then I moved to Locad, which is another tech and logistics company operating dual headquartered in Manila and in Singapore, operating in the greater APAC. And then just recently, I mean, I haven't been with with the company, but I've seen they've been expanding in the US and in the Middle East as well. So really exciting stuff. So I've been very interested about like tech startups, and it's really been like my um career track for a while. And because I've been part of like pioneering teams from, I think I joined Lala Move before they hit unicorn. So I was the part of the team during Series C, and then for Lucad was seed round. So very very fresh, and I just really enjoyed like building brands and helping them find their voice. I did a lot of content marketing, so anything social related or writing related or website related, emails, in-app notifications, stuff like that. So, like 3 years ago, if you probably got like a notification from Lala Move to book a ride or book a delivery, that was probably me sending that. So I really enjoyed that, and from that, a lot of I realized that I really enjoy helping startups grow. So I started looking for and I was also interested in pursuing like further education abroad. So I started looking for different like programs everywhere, and fortunately, I got accepted in Leipzig University. It's a university 2 hours away from Berlin. It's also the second oldest university next to Heidelberg
In
here in
Germany.
Germany. So it's the second, yes, it's the second oldest existing university in Germany. Rizal has taken a summer program here back when he was here, frolicking around Germany and all of Europe.
In
So really
between
exciting
looking for
stuff.
chicks, no? In Germany.
Yes, exactly. So she probably picked up some Leipzig girls around. So
Oh,
um
di ba one of his girlfriends was German? Si Jocelyn
probably
Bracken. I'm not sure if German siya.
I'm not sure if she's German, but I mean he spent most of his time in Heidelberg, so not necessarily here in Leipzig, but he spent like a summer here, took a class or something. Um So it's really exciting stuff. The program is really focused on SME development. So a lot of my people from my cohort actually worked for different uh, like NGOs that are helping or government that help SMEs. But then I took a very different approach or angle because I'm there to learn how to grow startups as SMEs. Because when you think about startups, even tech startups, however technologically advanced their product is, they technically still are SMEs uh, in some shape or form. So there, that's how I ended up here, and I'm really excited about AI and everything. That's I mean, there's a lot of like I think every day there's like a new AI startup that pops out. So, which is
Hindi
why
pala
I
German. I just checked. Bracken is Irish. Pero
Irish. Okay.
pero born in Hong Kong. Hmm.
Ah, wow.
And she was actually Rizal's. parang live-in wife, not legal wife
Mm.
kasi they
Common
couldn't
law
get
wife,
married.
no?
Common law wife.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
No
digression.
problem. No problem, no problem. So yeah, so that's about it for me and how I ended up here, and really excited to talk to you guys about AI or about anything related to, this very fast world that we're living in.
Yeah, no, awesome, awesome. Actually, the discussion on AI inadvertently goes into startups very, very quickly. No, I
Hmm.
was just speaking to
Yeah.
someone about it. Sige, maybe before because I know you're doing research, but maybe a thought about actually as we speak, I actually am waiting for a Lala Move delivery, so very meta, no.
Oh.
So let's see if it'll make it before our call ends, no. But coming back, if you were already in startups, this is just me.
Mm.
Um, why an MBA? No, kasi 'di ba you hear
Mm.
people say MBAs are for I don't know corporates and all that. So
Yeah.
so what's your view
Mm.
on that? No, why what made you get an MBA and why in Germany?
First, I think I was really just interested in taking further studies. It didn't really have to be an MBA. Anything related, because I mean, I've been with marketing teams, working on content, all the fluffy stuff. But I realized, once like I moved up like the corporate ladder, I had a team of my own. I started managing a team and also started managing a budget. Whenever like it's budget season or I have to defend like what my plans are for the year or for the quarter, I really didn't know how to, I mean, there are a lot of business acumen stuff that I didn't really develop or I didn't really have because I have a broadcast communication background from UP. So
Kong,
I
wow.
really had, yeah, broadcom from UP, and which is very creative. All like we literally have like only math too. I think that's like the only analytical or technical stuff that we did. So um I knew that there was a gap, so I knew that I needed to take like further studies, at least that's how I saw it. Like some people could develop it while on the job, but for me, I was like, okay, I think I would enjoy like taking further studies abroad. It's also been in the pipeline. So the MBA was just very fortunate that it aligned with what I wanted because it was focused on SME development. Initially, actually, I applied to it because it was part of the DAAD scholarship list. So, unfortunately, though, I wasn't selected for the scholarship, but I was selected. I was selected for the cohort, so I was in. But then I'd have to pay. And then I checked the pros and cons, weighed my options, and I was like, you know what? An MBA, a 2-year MBA for 6,000 euros, around how much is 6,000 euros? Around like
Wait,
700,000
six
pesos.
thousand euros lang? That's 2 years?
Yes.
That
Yes.
sounds
A
pretty
2-year MBA for,
reasonable.
yeah, it sounds reasonable because I think a lot of I won't name drop like an MBA in the Philippines, but I saw one and it would cost me like 1 million to
Millions.
1.2
Million
million.
siya. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for a 1-year program. And I'm like, I'd rather spend like that 700,000 like frolicking
Yeah.
in Europe, and
Pero wait,
following the
so
footsteps of
so
my
you're
dad.
paying your way through. You didn't get
Yeah,
a
I'm
scholarship. Okay.
I
So
didn't.
sige.
So
So I mean, other people might be considering the same thing, no? So let's say you've
yeah,
got
yeah.
7,000 euros. Magkano yun? Mga 400,000 pesos, something like that.
Around 600, I think. Around
600.
600. Let me
Okay.
check.
So
Yeah.
lalabas parang 1 million din yung budget kasi you'll need pocket money
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
still 1
So pero
million and you're in Germany versus 1 million and
yeah,
deficit ka pa
and
sa Pilipinas.
yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And yung pocket money na yun and like your money would generally be your living expenses din naman. I mean, you're gonna be spending, and it's not like it's cheap to live in Manila. I lived in Pasig
Yeah.
when I was there,
Yeah.
and I was in Capitolio area, so it was
Hey,
very
wait. We're
expensive.
both in the same area. I'm currently
Oh,
Pasig also. Yeah. Perfect.
I lived right across like Estancia, so it was very expensive. And so I was like, it's a, kind of a no-brainer for me to like spend that money if I'm gonna spend it in Manila and all that rides. I don't drive, so like and all that rides and like ang mahal. So I'm like, well, you know what? I'll just rather spend that here in Europe.
Good.
So,
That's good. No, no,
um,
I think that was a very good financial decision. And I
mm,
surmise you're getting more than just educated, right? I'm sure you're building networks, you're getting lots of
yes, Definitely. I think that's one thing that you could I mean, you could build a network, an international network, even back home. But I think it just accelerates your networking when you're abroad. Because right now, like just from my cohort, we're like 17 different people from 15 different countries. It's almost 1:1.
Right.
And I kind of have like friends from just because of that. I now have friends from all over the world. I can go to any part, any continent, and I would know someone.
And that's
So, which
priceless.
is
That kind of
cool.
network is priceless.
Yes, exactly. And like, and within Europe, like you could, and while you're studying here, I applied for one like summer school sponsored by the European Commission, and it was all expense paid. And because of that, I went to Turkey, met some people, and I met other other people from like Europe. So met folks from Poland, from Finland, and again, that's just because I'm here and the opportunities are here. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, we can talk more about,
Mhm.
opportunities to study, but I also want to shift some parang
Yeah,
focus to. So we caught up as of this recording, maybe 2 months ago, parang December yata yun or something. And
yeah,
and you said you were doing research for your paper, no? So maybe can you talk
yeah.
a little bit about what you're trying to do with your research?
Mhm. Yeah, so my research is about building an ethics sensitive model canvas, business model canvas for AI startups or startups that develop AI. So the idea is one of the growing concerns about AI and AI adoption. I mean, everyone is adopting AI, but at least for the skeptics, one of their growing concerns, and even for those who adopt, they are still concerned about this is ethics. Like, is my data safe? How are they using my data? Is my data being sold? And not just data, like ethics in all sense. Like
Yeah.
is this company like doing sustainable practices because we know how energy intensive AI products could be they're burning a new hold on the ozone layer, you could only imagine. So I mean, not just like data privacy but also like sustainability and helping people like with job security. So those are like there's a lot of facets to how ethics is um being or at least how ethics is evolving in the AI space. How and because of that, there is also research that a lot of people or a lot of consumers are actually more would actually pay a premium to if they could assure that this product that they're using is ethically safe. So when you think about it, they're like it's almost like a no-brainer for you to make an ethically sound product. um, but then the thing is, there's also research that at least half or more than half of AI startups don't have like an ethical checklist or at least an ethical process built into their business because it's a race right now. Like everyone wants to launch the product, like building thinking about the ethics of it all is like at the back burner. What we want is to build fast and launch it now.
And launch and
And
deploy. Yeah.
yeah, launch and deploy, and to hell with ethics. We'll think about that once like the regulators start knocking at our door, right? So like that's kind of the issue. So a lot of businesses think that building or at least adopting ethical business practices in their AI startup is a cost driver, when I believe that it is, or at least also there is some research about it that it could be a potential growth driver. So that's what I'm trying to see. If we could build in an ethics sensitive business model canvas, meaning once they start building their business, ethics is already baked into
By
like
design.
the by design. Yeah, it's already baked into how they design it, so that once they go to market, it's definitely it will naturally just work.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businesses are like still skeptical about it, or right now a lot of businesses just follow like what regulations have already been set. Like for example, here in Europe it's GDPR, it's everywhere. So they would follow that rule. But if it's any if the topic is kind of skirting around that GDPR rule book, they would try to run with it, right? Like, because again, it like the rules don't cover this thing. And one thing is, if there's no specific like policy for it yet, like companies are more likely to be like, okay, there's no policy for it anyway, so I think we're in the we're safe right now. But that's the thing, like policy takes time, so I think we could embed ethical business practices at the startup level. And of course policy will come in later, or is coming in right now, but it's kind of like fixing the problem once it's already happened. So at least I'm hoping that this research will encourage more businesses to adopt an ethically sound business model once they start the business, so that it won't be something that they'd have to, like, do later on once regulation applies.
No, you're bringing up excellent points. No, in fact, as of this conversation, I just concluded a 4-day workshop sponsored by UK with the Alan Turing Institute, and it's actually
Mm,
a workshop on AI governance and regulation. I was there with government representatives, and there were private sector people there actually. And the insight is, for example, here I give you a few points now. For privacy, GDPR was brought about at least partly by the need of the European community, basically European Union, to come up with a single European market, right? So you have a single currency, you're gonna have a single central bank or thereabouts,
mm,
and privacy was a big deal because apparently before GDPR, there were inconsistent parang rules on privacy. And so there was this parang pressure for European countries to come together and say we have to agree on the same standards to make it easier for us to do business. And in some respects, after GDPR, it was very significant because other countries started to follow suit, including the Philippines. Now we did our Data Privacy Act around 2012, and dali, I'm just getting some water. And in a way, it was also inspired by the ASEAN. No, there is all this pressure. The ASEAN, to a lesser extent, come up with a kind of an ASEAN market, and there was a pressure also to okay, let's harmonize, and let's just use GDPR as the standard. And then we had another law that came about around the same time called the Cybercrime Prevention Act. No? In fact, the registry numbers are very close. No, the DPA is RA 10173. The Cybercrime Prevention Act is RA 10175. No? I don't know what 10174 was. No, may namagitan. Pero they were all
mm,
both passed 2012. And when I did some digging, apparently the Cybercrime Prevention Act was also at least partly influenced by this thing called the Budapest Convention. Is it
mm,
Budapest or Bucharest? I have to double check now. But there's this convention on cybercrime naman. So it's a global parang community coming together and say, hey, we have to start defining what cybercrimes are because our existing criminal codes are not written for basically digital crimes. And there you go. So that was for me the preamble. Kasi for AI and ethics for that matter, there is no, I think, there is no external pressure to comply with some community standard. I think. Now, I don't know. Let me know if you've detected something. So, what would inspire people to comply anyway? Well, number one, what would inspire
mm,
government to write the rules? You can always write rules, pero maybe at you know at best, it's rules people no one cares about. And then you brought up an interesting point that I also believe in, that ethics can't just be about the stick. You can't just be looking to avoid fines or
mm,
punishment. There should certainly be an incentive, and I believe that the market will choose ethical businesses, all things being equal, over unethical ones. It's kind of a reputational thing, right? And
mm,
I remember I mentioned this during our chat. No, there's a group called the Ethisphere, and they track the
mm.
world's most ethical companies. You can't nominate yourself,
Yeah.
which is good. So it's not just your usual, pay to be awarded kind of setup. But your competitors can nominate you, your clients can nominate you, but it cannot be you. And
Mhm.
then I remember one thing that made it significant because I keep track of the ethosphere was 2012 research. Oddly enough, the same year DPA and cybercrime were passed. So there's 2012 research by some, I think these were scientists in Portugal. And I don't know if it was ever followed up. But what they did was, this ethosphere kasi had been around since, ano pa, mid 2000s pa. No? And they said, so we have data on who have been awarded the world's most ethical company badge. So they just did a simple, sample analysis. Na, okay, did these companies perform any better or worse compared to the broad market? And what they found was, at least as of that study, was there is a statistically significant difference. Parang
Mhm.
ethical companies as defined by the ethisphere parang outperformed the broader market by at least I think it was about 200 basis points or more. Market
Wow.
returns, ha? So
Wow.
parang the argument is, you should have a look and see if it will help your
Yeah,
paper.
yeah.
Kasi parang lumalabas, hindi lang siya stick. There's actually an incentive na if I'm ethical,
Yeah.
it actually makes for better business because investors
Mhm.
will get rewarded more, and then they knock
Mhm.
down parang what are the characteristics that kind of have all of these ethical companies seem to have in common.
Mhm.
One was stakeholder relationships are pretty good. Another was they take care of their reputation very well. I mean, most companies do. But I think
Mhm.
the one of the characteristics which I found very significant, kasi throughout that sampling window, it was about a 13-year period yata. Um, they were able to track these performances during times of market boom and bust. And
Mhm.
lumalabas, at least as far as that sample was concerned, the ethical companies seem to be more resilient during times of
Resilient.
peace.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sabi ko, that should be something worth talking about. And yet you don't hear
Mhm.
about it, no? Kaya nga when
Yeah.
you reached out to me, LinkedIn, looking to do this interview, sabi ko, wow, this is the first time I've heard about anything related to that in nearly 10 years, or more than 10 years
Yeah.
rather, no? So I was busy talking about this as early as 2014 and suddenly
Yeah.
somebody hit me up in 2024. So anyway, long story short, what do you think about that idea that ethics can actually yield superior returns? Kind of counterintuitive, no?
I think definitely like ethics could yield really good returns. For context, I'm also currently working now with a startup here in Berlin. And it's an AI startup. And one of the things that was like key to I think one of like our the key drivers, or at least not even drivers, but like a requirement that the company wanted to achieve is to have all the certifications needed to be able to go to market more easily. For example,
Yeah.
having the HIPAA certification. So we are targeting like a lot of US a lot of the US market. So without the HIPAA certification, again aligning with like it being an ethical move, without the HIPAA certification, we can't tap into the healthcare market. And that
Mm.
in itself is already an incentive. So um, there are a lot of other companies, especially if you want to go enterprise, who would need you to have specific certifications that are aligned with GDPR. Or, for example, if you are GDPR compliant, then you get to open yourself up to these kinds of more enterprise grade companies who probably will get a bigger subscription or a higher ticket, right? So I
Pero
think
wait,
from just
can I
from
interrupt right there? So, in the
yeah
case of HIPAA and maybe GDPR, these are natural gates. It's gatekeeping, no?
yeah
Like, okay, if you don't
yeah
comply with GDPR, there is no business for you in Europe. You're not gonna do business in
mm,
Europe. Same
yeah
with the HIPAA thing, no?
yeah
But for AI, and I don't know if you were gonna talk about this, parang there's not even enough rules written yet, no? So
yeah
parang there's no gate to overcome, and anything more than that sounds like restricting naman innovation. So that's always the challenge, diba?
yeah
Parang you don't want to have no regulation, but having
mhm,
some or more regulation actually slows down progress. So that's what
yeah
I mean. What do you think of that? Does that make sense, or do you have a
yeah
perspective
yeah
on that?
definitely it makes sense. There's even like I mean within the AI space, there's like a meme going around that the US innovates, China like replicates, and then Europe regulates. So
Paano yun? Paano yun?
which is kind of true.
US innovates,
US innovates,
China
China
replicates,
replicates,
and Europe
and Europe
regulates.
regulates.
Holy sh!
So
Doesn't sound
that's the reason
very
why.
compelling for Europe then.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, but it also a lot of European startups, or at least the ones that I see online, especially founders, are kind of like they feel like they're being choked by Europe. Like it's which is the reason why a lot of them, especially the bigger influencers in this space, talk about like, oh, if you're in Europe, might as well just set up shop in the US because it's a lot less regulation. And actually, last year, the EU launched or published. I'm not sure what the right word is, but the EU AI Act. So imagine it's like GDPR on steroids. Just
Yeah,
last
it's
year, I
pretty
think,
strict, isn't it?
yeah, it's very strict. It's like 200 pages of like every single thing, and I'm like, wow, it's almost like holding every AI startup in Europe like on a chokehold. And I mean, it's the thing is though, right again, it's very fresh. So personally, I'm not sure how they're gonna be implementing it, how they're gonna be, I mean, if there's any regulatory body or enforcement body to do this again because it's new. And I think that's kind of my take on it. It's that there are rules already, so it's coming. It's just that it's not. It hasn't been very widely accepted yet. The idea of the EU AI Act is for it to be kind of like the global standard, similar to the GDPR, where other countries would then adopt it. But then we're not sure of it yet, as you mentioned a while ago, like because of GDPR, the Philippines had to adopt with like a data privacy act. So kind of the same. I mean, they're hoping to do like influence the like the global market in the same way. So it is coming. So I think my take here is since it is coming, might as well get ahead of it. As a startup in the working in the AI space, don't wait for the EU AI Act to literally be like breathing on your neck. You want to start adopting ethical practices so that once it's really in full effect, there's like widespread adoption to it. It's not gonna be an issue for you as a business, and then your competitors are like gonna be playing catch up to you.
Yeah, sige, I want to break this down, no, and then later maybe we can go through some parts of your canvas, no, or your proposed
Mhm,
canvas to
mhm,
educate a lot of people. But um, there's a concept kasi in law called forum shopping. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
mhm,
where you basically look for the judge or the court that will most likely give you the verdict you want, no? And
yeah.
it depends on the case, of course, no. But for example, if you're suing someone, you'd rather file that case in a court in your home court, no, lalo na if you're in different geographies, just to make it more convenient for you and less
Mhm,
convenient for the other party, mga ganun. But the forum shopping
yeah.
can also be kind of more insidious, all the way down to bribery and all that. So
Mhm,
let's anyway, let's not go there yet. But if you look at it from a macro perspective, and you now have all of these countries in various levels of AI, potentially AI regulation, EU being the
mhm,
forerunner, then it does parang stand to reason that if you're an AI company, you
mhm,
don't want to be in Europe because the likelihood of getting regulated, and we're not even looking at the regulation per se. No, you can always break down the EU AI Act, and there's some interesting
mhm,
pieces there. Um, it just holds you back, no? If you have to do all of this compliance. In fact, somebody did a study nga, I think it was Stanford Institute, on they got all of the main AI parang houses, no? And
mhm,
they checked how many of them would have complied with the EU AI Act. And they found none of them could. Or at least none of them could
mhm,
comply significantly. And that's
mhm,
important kasi these are like the big AI houses, Anthropic, OpenAI.
mhm,
Oddly enough, many of them have located in UK, no? Which is just
mhm.
outside ata the jurisdiction of the
Yeah.
EU AI Act. Now the argument is, will like GDPR the EU AI Act be the basis, no, for global AI regulation. And I don't know if I'm ready to admit that it will be. Kasi yun na nga eh. AI is different eh. In the sense that
Mhm.
it's actually part of it's not just about compliance, it's also about innovation. And yun na
Mhm.
nga, I
Yeah.
think the devil is in the detail, no, about okay, just how much innovation will it curtail? So somebody should do an analysis siguro unless you've already done it. Vis-a-vis the compliance aspect and what companies can or cannot do. So yeah, that's one issue, the forum shopping. I'll give you an example. No, I don't know if this is still the case, but I remember when right around the time the EUAA Act was already being finalized, I think Japan came out with a controversial perspective that as far as copyright is concerned, AI will not be subject to copyright in Japan. No? I don't know if that's changed. And that certainly
Mm.
pissed off a lot of artists and, writers because generative AI is, one of its big bugbears is really potentially copyright infringement, lalo na sa
Yeah.
mga images. No? So, do you
Especially
have
in
an angle
Japan
on
with
that?
like the media. Yeah, like especially just wanted to say like especially in Japan, I can't imagine like all the mangakas. Like they have a very big like entertainment creative industry. So I could only imagine it being like annoying for them and almost like a threat to not just their livelihood but their like way of life. So I think a lot of so I think one of your first questions was if you're an AI startup, wouldn't you want to set shop in Europe because again there are these regulations and definitely yes I see it um I see a lot of conversations around that but also and I but I think right now we're looking at it on the short term.
Yeah.
The way I see it is right now because it's like not a lot of bigger companies or your bigger clients, potential clients. A lot of AI startups probably also are like looking into the B2B space. So the B2C space, a lot of people don't really care about what certification you have or what regulation you're following, right? But B2B, they would definitely require those things. And if you're an AI startup in that space, in the B2B space, I think setting up shop in Europe could potentially give you, at least this is just my opinion. I'm no authority in the matter, but I think
Yeah.
having read a lot of things about it and also just based on my personal experience, if you're a B2B AI startup, uh, setting up shop in Europe would potentially give you um, some sort of security for the long term.
At least
Because
you're complying already. Ito, I found the chart, no.
yes,
Ito yun eh. I don't know if you've seen this.
ooh,
So this
yeah,
2023 just so FYI. But
yeah,
yeah, no. So the scores on the bottom are the telling, no, na I
yeah,
think worst was Anthropic at that time. So of the 48, so each dot here is a clause in the EU AI Act. So
mm,
lumalabas Anthropic is the worst. Ah, hindi. There's this thing called Luminous. I don't even know who they are. No. And
mhm,
then of the parang this was still the draft version of the draft. I think the clauses on if you look at this number on the right naman, clauses on copyright are the worst
mhm,
offenders, no? There's only seven
yeah,
parang points of compliance, no?
mm,
Most and none of the other companies bothered, no? At that time, no? I don't know ngayon kung naayos na nila.
yeah,
Next to copyright would be this thing on I don't know what this means, member states and testing of AI
mhm.
systems, no? This is interesting, no? I'll give you a copy of this para you can have
Yeah,
a
sure. Well, would be super helpful. But
yeah,
yeah,
I mean yun nga eh, parang and this is already like these are the leading AI companies. No, what more pa
mhm,
your run of the mill startup in
yeah,
wherever trying to set up shop. You really want
yeah.
to go to EU, no, for that, no?
And I think that's one of the things that at least I could give like some insight with my preliminary like study. At least I'm getting some preliminary results within my study. And one of the things that showed up, I think this I have a couple of interviewees who mentioned like something along the lines of we don't really have a checklist. We just of what um ethical things we have to have down. But as long as we are, or at least this is for partnerships. I mentioned one of the questions is like, do you have a particular like standard or checklist of what your partners would be? Um, and they're like, no, we just go with who's the leading company. So if it's OpenAI, they're probably gonna be in a good spot. So they are more open to partnering with companies who are leading, regardless if they are ethical in the sense, because the idea again is it's such a new space, so no one really knows
Mhm.
what could be considered ethical or not. So I think that's one of like the insights that I
Gathered.
could share on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, ano nga eh. So the forum shopping part is interesting. And then, yun na nga, there's a lack of incentive. Um, in the sense na, unlike GDPR, there's really a stick. If you don't comply, you
Yeah.
don't get to do business in Europe. Pero the AI market, can companies afford to ignore Europe? May ganun eh. It's an equally
Mm,
powerful, economic area. Pero then they'll just say, I'll just sell services to Asia or I'll just sell services to the
yeah.
US, something like that. And maybe to a third extent, maybe coming back to the ethisphere idea, um, is it a matter of reputation also? Kasi you mentioned that na
Mm,
if you
yeah.
are ethical, markets might be more willing to deal with you anyway
Mm,
on account of better reputation. Like for example,
yeah.
um, if naalala ko nun, I think it was Volkswagen yata or one of those companies.
Yeah.
That they had a reputational hit because parang it came to light that they were faking their emissions data. I don't know, don't
Oof.
quote me on that, no, but parang something along those lines. And parang up to now they haven't really recovered from that. They took a massive hit market wise, not just market price but like market share. And
Mm,
then yon no. And then now I guess the rage is the shift to electric vehicles. um, but then one of the constant criticisms of electric driven vehicles is you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the charging stations.
mm,
And if you
mm,
add up the carbon footprint of producing all those batteries and creating these electrified networks, it again, opinions wise, it
yeah.
more than offsets the benefit of shifting from, at least initially, shifting from fossil
Yeah.
fuels, no? So mga ganyang mga arguments. And then look, parang broaden it out, no? 'Di ba, one of the criticisms of AI is the resource, it consumes power, for
Intensive. Yeah.
example. But then or the carbon footprint of all these data centers. But then somebody did some quick math and said, livestock produces more carbon emissions than all the data centers combined. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna murder all the cows? Yung mga ganyan. And then in terms of electricity, we're not even 5% of consumption. Uh, unlike other technologies like the blockchain, yung mga ganyan, yung mga
Mm,
cryptocurrency. So again, I mean, you can twist any number to suit your narrative, no. So but anyway, going
yeah.
back to that point about reputation, what have you learned anything about how ethics factors into reputational decisions, or what drives companies to possibly pursue it?
Yeah. So in terms of reputation, as I've mentioned, like some AI startups would partner with market leaders because they have the reputation that they have. So if it's OpenAI, if it's Anthropic, if it's Google, I mean, they don't necessarily, mm, they're not necessarily aware if these companies are like ethically compliant or what. It's just that because they are the market leader, they would partner with them. And I can only assume that it's kind of similar to like consumers. If they are the market leader in it, they would probably choose this particular startup. And I think, um, and the tricky part here though is not just for AI startups, but existing tech companies that have now started implementing AI within their product portfolio.
Yeah.
For
So these
example,
are
like
companies that were not AI native to begin with, but
yeah,
they were
not AI native.
transforming.
So now because they are the leaders, they kind of use that as leverage and then mix in the AI to their whole like marketing spiel, and suddenly like people would go to them, or because they already have market leadership and they have this new shiny thing which is AI. Case in point, we're doing this call in Zoom. Zoom now has an AI
AI
product, or at
assistant.
least yeah,
Yeah.
an AI assistant within Zoom, and it's not even like the I mean it's not, I don't think it's like the most amazing thing, but it's just that they plugged in like a new feature, and then suddenly people are all the rage about like, oh, Zoom now has all this, but you're not even sure if like
If it
how
works
they're
properly.
keeping, if it works properly, how they're saving this transcriptions of all your meetings and stuff so that they could create like like a checklist of what your meeting was about. I mean, these kinds of things people are not aware of anymore. They don't care about it because the reputation precedes the need to know how ethical that company is, because they are now market leaders. So heck with it, right? Like the reason why like Messenger, when they launched the Meta AI in WhatsApp or Messenger, everyone just started playing around with it. They didn't really know what was being how their data is being used, because again, these are market leaders. So I think it matters more to that in that lens, rather than, oh, this company. I think, and as, again, I'm thinking about it in a more B2C space probably. But I can only imagine it being kind of similar to B2B. But in the B2B space though, probably especially if they're like a big company who wants to like buy a specific product from a startup or from another company, um m- probably like it would be beneficial to that startup if they're based in Europe or based in somewhere where there's more regulation, because as you mentioned, there is that reputation of that location to be strict about these kinds of things. So if you're an enterprise company, definitely you would want your partners to have those kinds of regulations in place.
Yeah. Sige, so maybe to help flesh it out,
Mhm.
um, do you mind, taking us through some of the key points of the
Mhm.
ethical canvas that you designed,
Mhm.
or at least the components of it?
Yeah. So what I did was so this classical business model canvas proposed by Osterwalder.
Yeah.
So any business major is probably familiar with it. And it essentially like picks apart every single part of a business. And usually the idea is, if you're starting a business, you should check it out and build your business around that canvas. It helps you kind of not miss anything. So you're prepared to launch your business. And then I used it as kind of like the basis. And I started researching different kinds of uh, canvases, frameworks from different kinds of disciplines on how to incorporate ethical design in whatever they're doing. So ethical design in financial processes, ethical design in in different sectors. And I personally found the um, the ethics sensitive design framework of engineers to be, I think that's what I integrated with the business model canvas. So I integrated both canvases. It's called the digital ethics canvas, used by a lot of product managers and engineers to ensure that the product they are pushing out there is ethical. The reason for choosing this canvas or framework out of the many frameworks around is because I think if you design the product, or at least this is the assumption, if you design the product based on um, from the get go that it is ethical, it would kind of seep through everything else in your business. And so, as you can see here, this is the business model canvas, and I integrated a lot of different um, questions, or at least criteria for each of these blocks.
Hmm.
And one insight, at least from my interviews, because one of my questions in the interviews is of these, after like going through each of my questionnaires, um, and after kind of like having this aha moment, hopefully, for my interviewees, through that discussion, my question is like, of what we've discussed, what do you think is your strength, or at least the area of these blocks that you are strong ethically, and then what do you think would be something that you could, you know, drill down a little more, and overwhelmingly, I would say a lot of them said either the value proposition part or the customer segment part.
That's the
The
most powerful
reason,
part.
no, that's the part where they think that they're not like
Strong in.
very strong in, because
Wow.
um their
That's kind of
value
the most
proposition,
important part, diba? If you don't know what
which
you're
is actually
doing.
the most important part. When you don't know what you're doing and you don't know who your customers are, then what are we doing here? No, I mean,
It's crazy.
are strong. They
Yeah.
are strong in knowing who their customers are, and they are strong in what their product can do. But when you look at the ethical side of it, meaning, are they serving the ethical interest or the privacy of their customers? Are they serve, or is the product that they're building is for example, data security, is it like embedded and baked into your value proposition? Most
Wala.
often than not, it's not really there. Sometimes you would, because again, it's a race. So you would want to build a product. For example, like I just want to build an AI product that makes. I'm just thinking like DocuSign, like an AI version of DocuSign. I didn't interview DocuSign for the record,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
just thinking about like an AI version of DocuSign. I want. I only have like the main features is that it collects the document, it collects the signature, and then it spits it out. Those are the, like, let's say those are the three main like parts of the product. So they would just start building those, and then and then go to market with it, and then later on start putting guardrails. So it's, and again, this is very typical of startups. You start rowing the boat while you're building the boat. um
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
the thing, like they start going to market and start pitching their product, as long as those, those key components of the product is available, and then start building guardrails on, okay, where do we store these signatures, how do we send it, and then um put that at a later phase. So, and again, usually investors don't really care about like these ethical stuff anyway. They just want to see like a product that's functioning and then throw money at it. If it is functioning. So I think that's more like just sort of an insight to what like that canvas looks like. And I'm hoping that this canvas, if they adopt it, would be able to help, and not just like the companies I've interviewed, but also companies in general. If AI startups start adopting a business model canvas that already has ethics baked in, that they would have these questions answered, like, a very strong value proposition, meaning a strong product market fit, and a strong like set of features for your product, but that also is concerned about how data is secured, about how much energy it's consuming. So yeah, it's about it.
Well, I have some ideas, no? And of course, not
Yeah,
to preempt your research, no, but you got me thinking. This is from
but
personal.
I'm definitely open for ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is from personal experience. First is, I think I must have discussed my startup ideas with you. Like for example, uh, those who know my background, the at some point we competed in the NASA challenge. We did that dengue app, and
Mhm.
it's our most awarded or our most successful failure, as I describe it, because it's like our most awarded project. It was recognized by NASA, UNICEF, UNDP, WHO. Everything. It was even funded twice. I mean, the levels that thing went through far surpass most Filipino startups that I'm aware of. No, many startups still struggle with funding. For example, we got funded twice. No, but then ultimately it failed because I think we didn't achieve product market fit. Because ultimately we didn't know who we were really selling it to. Kaya nga tama yung sinabi mo na, who are you selling it to? Who is the customer? Kasi who's gonna pay for a dengue app? Government? Yeah. So when finally started talking to government, as you should be, uh, the pushback was actually odd, no? Number one, kasi it's healthcare. The pushback was we don't trust anything that was not developed without any clinical expertise.
Mm.
So ergo, none of us were medical doctors. And of course, it could have just been an easy, thing to just find a doctor and put them in front of other
Yeah.
doctors. Pero then, if you think about it, what would clinical expertise really have added to the product anyway? I mean, long story short, it's a dengue detector
Mm.
using satellite digital data. It's not even meant to be clinical. It's more like public health kind of work, no? It requires maybe natural science experts, space science experts, GIS experts, and it's meant to actually preclude or preempt people getting sick. You need the clinicians pag nandiyan na sa ER,
Mm.
pasyente. But this actually is meant to warn people before they get sick enough to go to the ER. So anyway, long story short, um, maybe we failed one of the basic parang rules of designing with the market or a person in mind. No? Now that makes me think about your point. How do you ensure ethics is embedded by design? Dapat siguro when you do your design thinking, if you do design thinking, kasi the first step in design thinking is empathy. You have to empathize with a
Mm.
person first or a user long before you even think about the problem. Many startups actually skip to
Mm.
step two. Let's define the problem
Yeah.
first, solve the
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah.
forgetting about who you're solving it for. Ganun yung ginawa namin.
Mm.
Na
Yeah.
dengue is a
Mm.
problem. We created this fancy Star Trek level detector. Worked very well. The science worked out. We forgot, who are we solving this for? Are we solving it for researchers, for
Mm.
doctors? And at that point, the tricky question will be, do these people care about the ethics? I guess presumably they should,
Mm.
right? Pero I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, 'di ba, parang think about food. No, when you go to Jollibee, do you even think about the ethics of Jollibee? Parang are they underpaying their staff?
Mm.
Mga ganyan. Or
Yeah.
is this food even healthy? Am I gonna die of cholesterol if I eat this hot dog? Yung mga ganon. And many cases, yeah, okay, that's one example. Second example, so we did some work in human rights, no, during the pandemic. Anyway, long story short, the exercise was to find some way of measuring demand for human rights. So if human rights was like a commodity or a good,
Mm.
can we measure the demand? And we came up with some proxies like search interest, for example. How many
Mm.
people were searching for human rights related terms, and then superimpose that against the pandemic lockdowns. Kasi we had, I don't know if you remember, no? We had ECQ, MCQ, di ba?
Yeah. May
Basta,
bubble.
oo.
Ang dami pa.
Basta,
MECQ.
so
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
MECQ, so in a way, it represented levels of parang crisis or emergency.
Mm.
Diba? So ECQ is the most matindi and then MCQ is less. So we had defined periods. It's an interesting experiment. No? Maybe one of these days it will probably see the light of day because we have not yet published it, but we have the data. Parang there were defined periods now, or between this date and that date, we were under this kind of community quarantine, and you had levels. And what we simply did that actually was surprisingly successful was we checked, did the search level of certain terms ebb and flow during these periods, and then we found a good way of predicting that. And what we found was, shockingly or not shockingly, demand for human rights seems to go down during moments of crisis. Weird, no? Parang things like privacy, for
Mm.
example. If you remember, we had to fill up these stupid contact
Yeah.
tracing
Yeah.
forms
Which
whenever
is
you
probably
bought.
why I get so many spam
Yeah,
messages.
every time
Yeah.
you bought a coffee from Starbucks, they would have you fill up this stupid
Yeah.
things. In the original intention was sort of sound. Parang if anyone
Contact
gets sick,
tracing.
we'll
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
trace where. But I'm sure those farms went nowhere. At worst, they went to scammers, no, and they have your number.
Yeah, exactly.
Pero parang ganun na, if you wanna have coffee, you will comply with that. And that means not caring about your data privacy. Because nga,
Mm-hmm.
there's a community quarantine. Parang ganun yung connect the dots eh. Which is, for me, in a way, an argument probably against ethics by design. Kasi mangyayari, people don't care pala, no? Or maybe I'm wrong about that. But that seemed to be where the discussion was, no? So,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I'm just sharing that. I don't know if you have a
Yeah.
view on that, on how you want to react to that.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting because parang what I imagine is like in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like ethics is probably like way up there,
Way up there,
even
and it's
more
even
than like
above the pyramid.
luxuries. Yeah, yeah, it's even above. It's like in the sky, because like at the end of it, like it's not you could live without it.
Doesn't drive
Like it
demand.
could be
Wait,
all
wait.
just
But I want to do a
yeah,
counter argument to that, which is counter argument to myself. Um,
yeah,
remember when, I don't know if you even remember when smoking was fashionable. And then
yeah.
suddenly it was not
Okay,
fashionable. Alam mo, there's this thing called Yossi Kadiri. There's a campaign,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
coincided with around the time when designate you can't smoke in public anymore. You have to go to some designated smoking area. No? Di katulad dati, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised. I was still in university pa nga yata noon, and then starting work. At how quickly that campaign actually worked. Suddenly, smoking was unfashionable. It was disgusting. And dati, if you were I'm not a smoker, no, but I have friends who are smokers.
yeah,
Ang angas mo if you're smoking, you can smoke anywhere. No? You look sexy, kuno-kuno, macho-macho. And then suddenly, surprisingly, parang seemingly overnight, you were suddenly apologetic if you had to smoke, or if you were blowing smoke into people's faces. Suddenly the culture flipped very quickly. So I'm using that as an example because it could very well happen to something like, privacy ethics, na suddenly people flip. If I guess the
yeah,
campaign was quite successful for smoking kasi all out sila nun eh. They were saying, oh, secondhand smoke causes cancer, and, it's socially unacceptable. Dati nga, you can smoke in planes eh, di ba?
yeah.
Ngayon, the no smoking sign there is kind of superfluous kasi wala naman talagang nagyoyosi na, no? So yun lang, parang thinking out loud, if there is a societal clamor and trigger, parang it's like the zeitgeist, di ba? That's the term, di ba?
Yeah.
Parang, suddenly the society flips. And suddenly, ethics by design na tayo ngayon. This thing's gonna be important.
Yeah, I think though yung sa smoking as an example, kind of works because there is no upside to smoking aside from you looking cool, which again is
It's
like
relative.
subjective, like by design, versus like you taking care of your data. There's an actual threat to you if you don't take care of it. So
Correct,
there is
correct.
like so I think that's the that's the reason why I think it would work like down the line. Um is because people would start, and like with data being like data's not the next oil, it is the it oil is dead for me. Like data
I
is
think nga
the
data is
primary
not just the new
resource.
oil, it's the new pollution.
Yeah, it's the new everything, it's the new
Yeah.
money, it's minting like, and at one point it would probably like achieve a point where we're like a shadow of our data, like, and it's
Yeah.
not the other way around, right? And once that happens, like people would start caring, and these things that have that like these regulators have been like shoving down our throats would make sense. But right now, as
Wala, it's
everything's like
optional
on
eh.
an up, yeah, yeah, it's an optional thing.
Actually, on that point, I also recently met the Commission on Human Rights, no, and
Mhm.
uh, and they actually admit that they have yet to catch up with the AI trend, the data trend. Tagal na, no? And one of the things that I hope to work with them on, and I suggested, is I think it comes back to fundamentals. When you look at the Bill of Rights, privacy is there, so
Exactly.
it's relatively straightforward to extend that to the Data Privacy Act as a fulfillment of the Constitution. but data isn't necessarily mentioned in Bill of Rights. No, the word data only appears once in the Constitution. It's in the context of
Mm-hmm.
research pa. The
Mm-hmm.
word data doesn't appear in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So sabi ko, and much less AI, no? Data Privacy Act doesn't mention
Yeah.
AI, Cybercrime Act doesn't mention AI, Intellectual Property Code doesn't mention AI, and yet these are the laws that AI intersects with, no? From
Mm-hmm.
an ethical standpoint. And I was telling them, if you are, parang if we are to protect human rights, and we're already saying data is a reflection of that, no? Then it behooves us to write data as part of human rights. Data rights are human
Mm-hmm.
rights, no? And yet
Yeah.
those definitions don't necessarily exist yet, no? As in explicitly. Kasi if we then look at AI, which is data come to life, then it makes it even more complex. Like yung mga cases like that self-driving car ran over someone in Arizona
Yeah.
and you don't even know who to sue. You can't sue the car, can't sue the algorithm. You can sue the driver who's busy playing computer games kasi self-driving car eh. Yung mga ganon, parang it just creates these new dimensions of liabilities that were not previously explicitly defined and now we're forced to define it. No? Yun yung problema.
But I think I mean, it's just like every other innovation in the world. I mean, the feudal system came crashing down, and then came the neo-feudal. No, just kidding.
Hey, I believe
Like
that.
a way
I
of
believe
life, right? So,
neo-feudal.
so I mean, I think it's just like everything else. Else, if all these like rules have been set in place, we won't have to. We wouldn't need to vote for senators anymore. Wait, like, I mean, they
But
wouldn't be out of a job because I mean these things are. I mean, and I completely agree with what you mentioned. It's such a nice soundbite. Data rights are human rights because they like it is human, inherently human now, and it's
yeah,
part of us.
most data
So
naman is human generated data eh. With a few
yeah.
exceptions like machine data and I guess space data yung mga ganyan, natural
Yeah, and
data.
probably like it would be there again they're talking about like some sort of singularity when like the dead internet theory with
Mm.
like saying that it's just eh, as you mentioned, like right now most data is human data, but maybe there would come a point where is most data still going to be human data, or it's just computers talking to each other, right? So and we're not even there yet. So I think right now like like legislation should definitely write that into law so that once those like bigger problems, once like computers are just talking to each other, come up, then they would have another problem to deal with. So right now, I think definitely having like some provision to help or at least like secure personal data of people is definitely needed, especially in countries like the Philippines where everyone is online. We're still the biggest consumer of social media, so
Yeah.
it's practically everyone being subjected to this.
Actually, in the recently launched AI safety report, no, where the Philippines played a big part. I was the representative contributing to that. No, I like how we found a consensus on how to define the risks of AI and parang the three broad categories. Kasi ang dami, diverse siya and it also talks to the ethics of AI. The first category is the misuse of AI. So that
Mm-hmm.
covers things like weaponized algorithms,
Mm-hmm.
using AI to discover biological weapons. So the same AI that can discover drugs can be used to create biological
Mm-hmm.
weapons, chemical weapons. And of course, you have the disinformation issue, the fake news issue, the deepfakes. So that's all misuse. Then you
Mm-hmm.
have functionality risks. So if the AI doesn't function as you expect, or the systems actually don't work properly. So this also covers issues like bias, underrepresentation, which is more of a data sampling problem, or downright
Mm-hmm.
the AI doesn't respond properly, hallucinations, loss of control if
Mm-hmm.
these automated systems start, going haywire. And then the last category is the broadest one, which is systemic. So systemic risks are may or may not have been intentional, but it because of AI, it affects the system, no? Like job losses, environmental risks, those kind of things. Now, anyway, the point that I'm trying to make here is it's such a long list of risks. Buti nga we didn't call it the AI risk report, eh. We called it AI safety. Yeah, because the hope was by bringing up all of these issues, bringing it all up to light, that we all find a way to work together to address them para it becomes it becomes safe. Kasi nga no one will deny naman the transformative potential, disruptive potential of AI. But if all of these issues already exist, parang there doesn't seem to be enough of an alarm that why are we tolerant? I mean, we're not tolerant of nuclear development, right? Because
Mhm.
in the same manner, you can generate nuclear power, but you can also eliminate the entire human race using nuclear weapons. We're not tolerant of biological weapons either. No, that's a Geneva Protocol. No, you cannot develop that, otherwise you'll be embargoed by the powers
Mhm.
that be. You cannot
That
do
may be.
stem cell.
Mhm.
I may stem cell now, but you can't do human cloning. Diba? Somebody tried that.
Yeah.
I think that person is currently in jail, no, in China. The person who successfully cloned a human, no, and for whatever reason, ethics is probably one of the reasons they can't do that, no, kasi who knows where that technology will bring us. So I don't know, kasi I mean those are kind of very distinct risks to humankind. AI seems to be kind of close to that space, but I don't see any collective effort to raise alarm and make sure these systems are safe. Sabi mo nga, if for with lack of regulation, companies are just gonna max out and take
Yeah.
advantage.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of it's a lot. I think I think it's a lot to do with because the harm isn't um it's not a clear and present danger yet.
Not
So
explicit, no?
um, yeah, it's not explicit. So um, but once it becomes like it starts, and one thing that I could probably imagine is like it will start like toppling economies or something. Once it becomes like a clear and present danger, not just to regular people, but as you mentioned, the powers that may be. Um, uh, once it threatens them, just like COVID, like we developed like the vaccine very quickly, probably the fastest
In
vaccine we
record
ever
time nga
developed
daw, eh,
because it
suspiciously
was
record
in
time.
record time, exactly. Which is the reason why a lot of these anti-vax people like can't believe that it could be done because I mean like the ruling class was kind of like was taking the hit because everything was closed, so it has to be developed. So I think
Yeah.
until such time where that happens, then yeah, the companies are just gonna max out. I was just thinking one case. I just want to probably like zero it in to the Philippines. One of the studies that I found is of industries that would adopt AI, like the finance and banking industries, probably like leading it. And the thing is, one study also showed that globally, the Philippines is leading in fintech adoption. It's like around 92% or something.
Are
It's
we?
well above
Wow,
the global
that's
average.
amazing.
Yeah, we are. We are like the number one um, adopters of fintech. So you put two and two together, AI adoption in finance and the adoption of Filipinos to fintech companies. I could only imagine like an AI fintech company being like incredibly disruptive, but also could potentially be incredibly destructive to like Filipino lives. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true.
right now, Filipinos are like we are in the testing ground. There's like an interview saying that like if it's a new feature on Facebook,
Test
Facebook
it on the
would
Philippines.
usually like test it in the Philippines first because it would work if it works in the Philippines because we just download everything or update whatever. We
Yeah,
don't really
yeah.
care
Tsaka
about
the
it.
depth of the
But
market.
once like let's say yeah, so once that like I could only imagine if like a fintech company, an AI fintech company suddenly like presses like a clear danger to finances or the lives or livelihood of people in the Philippines, then it would start raising questions. But until then, like I could really just imagine like startups maxing it out.
Yeah. Well, anyway, just like that, we're at the hour. So of course we probably will do yet
Wow.
another follow up. Any last thoughts for
For
now?
sure.
Well, while we wrap up, and yeah, we gotta set up the next chat very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much, Doc, for this. I think it felt very cathartic for me as well to talk about these things,
Yeah,
because I've been researching and interviewing and writing about these stuff. So you get in over your head. You kind of it is also is very helpful to me. So really glad I was here, and really just looking forward to how this space evolves. And it will evolve probably faster than I can publish my thesis. And once I publish my thesis, it's probably like obsolete by then because like a new thing has already happened. So yeah, just really excited about this space. And thanks for
yeah,
having me.
yeah. Well said. But obviously, even though it gets outdated quickly, it doesn't detract from the importance. I think your work is very important. And then we'll have your contact details in the show notes if people want to reach out to you and maybe add to your work or leverage your work. We'll make sure everyone has the ability to contact you.
Good. Thanks. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Gian.